please welcome to the Horizon stage Thasunda Brown Duckett.
Such a pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Where would you like me to sit? Right here?
Here.
All right, perfect.
Great.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Great. Well, thank you for being here with us. So Thasunda is the president and CEO of TIAA. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I know just recently you were named to Fortune's Most Powerful Women list. So congratulations.
Thank you.
She's in the top 10.
That's right.
Very cool. So I know a lot of people equate kind of power and bravery. Do you feel that you're a brave leader?
I do. I mean, I think that coming from the backdrop of who I am, you cannot be the first woman CEO of your company. You cannot be one of 4 Black women to ever lead a Fortune 500 and not be brave. It just does not exist. And so when I think about what does it mean to be brave, you know, I think about several key factors. I think brave leadership requires a bold vision. And when I think about the privilege of what I get to do every day, the bold vision is to ensure that every American, if you work, you deserve to have dignity in retirement. And so being bold about that vision, I think, is brave. Yeah. I think it's also important when I think about what it means to be brave, it's also being humble and understanding your own shortcomings. Brave does not mean that you have all the answers. Brave means that you are intellectually curious enough and you are humble enough and you respect the fact that people around you may have the answer that you're seeking to solve or may be able to deposit so that as a collective we can create solutions. And so bravery is about being vulnerable. Bravery is about intellectual curiosity. And I think bravery, especially in a moment of what you just talked about, bravery is about asking the counter narrative. Bravery is not about either or. I think I always say, do you want to be right or do you want the outcome? And I think in this environment, more than ever, bravery requires us to be open and saying, I want the outcome, going back to the vision. And if that requires me to pivot, to adjust, to adapt, to build, whatever it takes, do not lose the plot. And I think to be brave means you are never, ever forgetting your why. You are open to the possibility that the way you navigate may require you to edit, but you always stay focused on the outcome of what you're trying to solve. And finally, I do think bravery requires you to be open to winning hearts and minds of everyone. People who think like you, don't think like you, people who are at different levels of an organization. I do think it is more important than ever to be open to the possibility that even with someone you disagree with, they may have an insight that can accelerate the outcome you're trying to drive. That's how I think about bravery.
That's amazing. So I love so much of that. Being curious.
Yes.
Yep. Being willing to pivot.
Yes.
You know, listen to folks who may not always agree with you, right? All great elements of bravery. Yes. And I think we're in this moment, right, where so many organizations are feeling pressure, right? Universities, law firms, nonprofits, and you know, probably especially
yes.
corporations. And so, like, what are some of the most kind of pressing challenges or those moments that require bravery in this moment leading a Fortune 100 company?
Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like we all need to take a deep breath. Like,
yeah.
You know, when I think about the question, I mean, I think if there was one word to express what we as leaders are feeling, and when I say leaders, I'm not talking about the rented title. I'm talking about the role we all play every day to lead. It would be uncertainty. Uncertainty is the hardest thing for us as leaders. It's the hardest thing for me as a mom, is this uncertainty factor. And so I think what we're dealing with now is a lot of uncertainty. It's uncertainty in terms of the macro environment. It's uncertainty as we think about the wars that are happening, the geopolitical risk. It's uncertainty around inflation, interest rates. It's uncertainty around the heaviness that you're dealing with inside with your employee base that are feeling heavy, not just within the company, but what's happening around the world. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think the most important thing and what I try to express to my team, and again, this is that humbleness and being open and vulnerable, is that when you are facing uncertainty, get back to that brave and your why. And what I remind my team and what I remind myself is let's take a step back and talk about our why. And for us, our why is that we exist to ensure that millions of Americans can have a secure retirement. For me personally, my why is to inspire and make positive impact. When you widen the lens, and what I remind people, especially the younger generation, is you cannot lead a company that has been around for over 100 years and have not navigated uncertainty. In this country, if you are a company that's been around 100 years, you have navigated through the Depression, you have navigated through the women's suffrage movement, you have navigated through Jim Crow era segregation, integration, you have navigated into wars, Vietnam, you have navigated into high inflation rates, you have navigated it all as an institution, and we are still here doing the work that we set forth to do. And so I do think it's important to widen the lens as leaders and say, we have been here before. History doesn't repeat itself, but it can rhyme. Yeah. And so in uncertainty, widen the lens, remind yourself, has your why changed? And I would also offer that I don't know a greater time to be a leader. I want to be that leader when there is uncertainty. I want to be the one that has an opportunity to have two hands on the steering wheel, checking in with my co-pilot, checking in with the people sitting in the back, and say, let's remind ourselves where we're trying to go, operating with calmness, operating with vision, not losing the plot, and then asking ourselves, even with uncertainty, even when it is heavy, there's also opportunity. And this goes back to the goals that you were just sharing earlier, that even when you think things are bad, find the opportunity in bad. Even if you think that what you are doing is awesome and it is being challenged, it's an opportunity to say, I know everything that we're doing is not awesome. And so yes, we will stand firm on what we know is true to our vision, but we also are open enough to say this is an invitation to say, where can we improve and where can we drive excellence to the outcomes we're trying to do? So yes, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of heaviness. It's a we thing. We have to do it together, but you also have to be reminded, if we widen the lens, and I'm talking to you as someone who is first generation full integration. When I widen the lens, there is no better time that I want to lead than now. I would not want to live in any other era but today in 2025 to deal with the issues and the opportunities that we have ahead of us. And I think it is important to remind ourselves, this is the time to lead. On our worst day, it is better than the people's shoulders of which we stand, and we have to preserve that optimism in order to make change and in order to move forward.
I love the optimism.
Yes.
That's amazing.
You have to have optimism.
Yep. And so you mentioned the fact that you are only one of 2 black women and only one of 8 black CEOs among the Fortune 500, which I find is pretty astounding.
Yes.
So how do you think about kind of diversity in corporate America in this moment? And what do you think we need to be doing differently or to be doing more of?
Well, I believe that talent is created equally, opportunity is not. And I believe that we are still in pursuit of meritocracy. Meritocracy is the goal, but it's hard to say that we've accomplished meritocracy when there's only 2 black women running a Fortune 500, or there's only 12% of females running a Fortune 500. And so I think that there's an opportunity to acknowledge the progress, but also say there's more work to do. And so what I would offer as we think about what is the opportunity in the go forward, it is not an or, it is an and. When and as we become a more inclusive workforce, when and as we become more open to the possibilities that talent can look different than what we have historically have held, that will unlock more GDP growth. That will unlock more innovation and more opportunity. The greatest asset that we have here are our people. And when we can unlock our people, then you will have a wide range of leadership that will look like the fabric of this country. And so there's 4 things that I always say that is important. And I don't think it's the job just for me as the Black woman.
Yeah,
we will
definitely.
fail because there's only 2 of us running a Fortune 500. Right. It requires all of us. And quite frankly, some of my best allies have been white men. And so we cannot decide on the surface that we cannot grow because we are not where we want to be. I believe that we have to understand that it takes all of us together. So 1, it's a mindset. Do we believe that talent is created equally and opportunity is not? If you believe that, you're going to ask questions within your organization. You're going to look at your data. You're going to look at your employee surveys and your engagement scores and not just be happy at the top line, but you're going to disaggregate the data to find the insights of what we can do better. You're going to look at your processes and your practices and say, what is getting in the way where I don't see representation in this part of the organization? What is the why? Am I really casting the widest net? Am I making it available? And if I am doing all those things and I hire someone that may not be a woman or may not be Black, I'm okay with that because I know I've opened up the aperture of talent, and talent will include everyone. And then finally, I think it's important that we do ask ourselves, this is not an effort play. This is an intentional play to drive the outcomes for what we're here to do. And I believe that if we believe that the outcome is to make sure that we have the very best talent, it's a talent play, then it's hard to say that if I have the best talent, but I don't have representation, how can I assure myself I have the best talent? Am I going to rural America? Am I going to suburban? Am I going to this college over here or that college over there? Am I looking at different skills to invest in my own workforce if they don't have the skills coming in the door? I just think if we do that, we will see representation. And then lastly, I would say when it comes to becoming a CEO, we cannot love the fact of just the total number. We have to understand what is the path within this company in order to get to that C-suite. And I think you have to understand what is it that this company looks for and values. And so I do think we have to ensure that women are represented and people of color are represented in all areas of the business. Running a P&L is important. It is important that you have worked on those front lines. It is important that you have used your voice and that you've brought new ideas to the table. But I do think that in order for us to improve representation, we have to look at the pipeline, and we have to make sure that the pipeline is in areas of the business that has a higher propensity to ascend to the C-suite. That means you have to understand your culture. We have work to do. And finally, I do have to say this, as women, especially as a Black woman, if you walk into a room or if you're at a company where you don't see yourself, it does not mean that you don't belong at that company or you don't belong in that area. You might be there to be the first. And so I do think we cannot opt out of those positions that may seem uncomfortable. We have to be okay sitting in hard. We have to be okay bringing our perspective. And we have to be okay in saying, if this is what I have, then this is what I will do. And I will sit in hard in order to drive the outcomes that I believe that I'm here to do, which is to optimize my talents and ultimately break a few ceilings along the way or bring the folding chair into the room if there's not one.
That's great. 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 So I love that. Leaning into the discomfort.
Yes.
The intentionality of the strategy, right? Also important if we're really going to see, kind of large-scale change in this area.
Absolutely.
And I know that you have, talked about the fact that 40% of Americans run the risk of running out of funding in their retirement, especially as we're living longer.
Yes.
So how is TIAA addressing that issue?
Yeah, this is a real personal passion piece for me. if I look in this room, if I said 40% of you will run out of money in retirement, if we want to talk about closing the inequality gap, we are transferring debt, not equity and opportunity. And I do think that it's important to understand that in order for us to ensure that all Americans can have a dignified retirement, it's going to take the private market, it's going to take good public policy, and it's going to take us as individuals doing our part. And so we know that Social Security is not enough. It was never designed to be enough. But unfortunately, it is heavily weighted to be that replacement income, which means people don't have enough for everyday needs. We know that in the 70s, when inflation was high, close to 70% of Americans also had a pension. Now that number is less than 12%. We know that a 401k plan was never designed to be the only plan. So what do we do? There's a couple of things that I would offer. I think one, and this is some good news when I think about working together in government, retirement is a bipartisan issue. It doesn't matter who you are or where you live. We all understand that impact. And so I am optimistic that we will continue to improve and shape good policy that allows for better, secure retirement outcomes, like auto enrollment. I think every company should have auto enrollment. Every company should also allow the person to opt out, but the next year you're going to enroll them back in. Every company should also have auto escalation, which means that maybe when you first started your job, you could only contribute X amount of dollars. The company will increase it 1%. You could take it down, but increase it to the max. Studies show that if you auto-enroll someone and they opt out and you auto-enroll them back in, they stay. That was just a moment in life where they were dealing with something. Why would we as leaders let a moment in someone's life lead to 20 years of not getting compounding income, compounding value, so that $200 or $500 that they needed to reduce, it impacted them for the next 20 to 25 years because we did not auto-enroll them back in? That is not sound. And then when we think about auto escalation, it's important because we are not saving enough. But there's also 57 million Americans who work with small businesses that don't have access to workplace plans. And so we have to have good policy to make it easier for business owners, small business owners, to be able to provide retirement opportunities and access for everyone. And then finally, I would say it's about education and making sure that your retirement plan has exposure to equities, bonds, and insurance. People want guaranteed income. We have longevity is a risk. And it's important to say that I don't know how much I need, but I want to make sure I don't run out. And so how do we make sure that income is the outcome? So there is sound policy that is happening and more to be done. There is good progress that companies are providing on how they're designing their 401k and 403b plans. And I think we have to make sure that we as individuals are doing everything that we can. I have to tell you, Otis Brown is my father. And he did not go to college. He grew up in the segregated South. And when I graduated from college, I was at home, and I happened to be looking at his statement, true story. And I look and I say, Dad, he had worked for this company at the time for over 30 plus years. My dad had a pension, but the pension is not enough. He was raising 3 kids. I looked at his 401k plan, and Otis Brown never contributed $1. And this is a man that did everything that he could for my brothers and I and my mother to be able to have the best of what we had, which was not a lot, but it was our best. And to be the daughter to tell the father, Dad, you don't have enough. At the time, I was making $26,000. I did not know that I would become a CEO, even though my dad did tell me to reach for the moon, because even if I missed, I would be among the stars. But my point is, it upset me. Because I had a working class family that was long on love and short on money. There were the answers to the test, but we did not see the guy that scanned boxes. We did not see the guy that was riding the truck, driving trucks. But we had a beautiful brochure, I am sure, the company did. And so the question and the passion that I would ask of all of us, it is not enough to be on a list and say we're one of the best companies. It is not enough to have a beautiful design plan. It is not enough to have all the brochures. The question is your plan reaching Otis Brown? Is it reaching the person that is doing everything that he can for his children? Is it reaching the person that is scanning boxes and says that this plan is for me too? My dad immediately maxed out. I don't know how they did it. He immediately maxed out. And so do not count other people's money. They will have the same dreams and aspirations. Give them the answers to the test. My dad maxed out because he did not want him to be the burden on me. So I just want to make sure that this is a human story. Yeah. It's not just dollars and cents. It is American people that are working hard every day. And that when we do have a plan, let's make sure we're looking at the data in our own company and saying, is it reaching the Otis Browns in our company to ensure that they can have a better outcome for their future as well?
I love that. And I love that you mentioned how retirement is a bipartisan issue.
Yes.
We definitely think the same of the issues that we work on
Yes.
around jobs, right? And so the two fit so well together. And I think it's a moment of opportunity where we can continue to really be looking to see how do we drive these policy changes that we need to get to these goals.
That's right.
And I know we're both moms, and you mentioned that parenting and being a mom, like it gets you kind of used to that working with uncertainty. I'm wondering, are there other ways that motherhood has prepared you for your role of CEO?
For all the moms, and we fail every day. Let's just get that out the way. We do our best, especially when you have more than one. You have more options to not be great every single day. But I will tell you this, and I talk about this publicly. I remember when I was working and new mom, and when I would get up in the morning because I had to take the bus to take a train, from New Jersey to New York and then walk. It was a whole situation to get to work every day. So in effect, I would leave my kids in the morning and would not see them. And when I get home at night, they would be asleep. And I remember one night I was at the Port Authority in my business attire, the last bus to get home, which is everyone who's going to the casino and me. Yeah. And I broke down. I called my husband and I said, when I get up in the morning, I don't see my kids. When I get home, I don't see my kids. Like, what am I doing? Now, my husband is a Marine and an engineer and a stay-at-home dad, and he just said quite simply, then quit. So I'm like, that's not the point. But here is where I landed and why I give you that backdrop. Work-life balance is a lie. I had to shift my mindset. And given that I am in finance, I decided to live my life like a diversified portfolio. So here's what that means. Write down everything that matters to you. For me, it's a mom, it's being a CEO, a daughter, a sister, an auntie, a wife, all of those things, a cousin, and allocate. Tell yourself the truth. You only have 100%, not 110. And the reality is, when I allocate, my children do not get 100%. They get 30. The reason why it's important to tell yourself the truth is because I became a more present mom within that 30%. I give them 100%. I don't multitask as much anymore because I know they only get 30. Understand that life will life, and there will be market volatility or life volatility. I lost my brother suddenly. My dad has cancer. All the things that happen when you're raising your children. So you have to respond to market volatility, which means you have to shift your allocation. Sometimes my kids need more of me. Sometimes my job will need a higher allocation. But here is the point. If you live your life like a diversified portfolio, everything that matters to you is in it. On some days, I am not a good mom. On some days, I am not a good CEO. At some days, I'm not a good daughter. But over time, just like a diversified portfolio, I am outperforming this life because over time, I am a good mom. Over time, I am a good leader. Over time, I am a good daughter. And so if you live your life like a diversified portfolio, you will give yourself grace to respond to market life conditions. You might need to short the stock, sell it, right? Just quit chasing bad. You have to be diversified. So they don't get 100%. And over time, you will outperform this thing called life because everything that matters to you is in your portfolio. And so my children are in my portfolio teaching me every day how to deal with volatility, but also teaching me every day those outsized returns that I get every day by being the privilege of being the mother to Madison, Miles, and Mackenzie.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. I know I'm sitting here trying to figure out my allocations in my head.
Yes,
so
do it. It will change. Work-life balance is a lie. It never reconciles. Diversification can work. It gives yourself grace.
I have a stay-at-home husband too. So
yes.
They're the best.
They are, especially when they're a Marine and an engineer. I on that, and I know we have to go. It takes a village. It takes a village to do what we all do, to be able to lead with excellence, to deal with uncertainty, to understand that life will life. And so for me, I do think the question for all of you is, who is your village? And are you acknowledging that it is a we thing? I could not be a CEO and deal with all the pressure and be a mommy and all the things that I am without the village. And my husband, Richard Duckett, is a very important part of my village. He understood my passion, and he decided, and we decided, that he would be the stay-at-home dad so that when our kids look up, they always saw a parent. And so I do think it's important to understand that sometimes you can remix a box, reshape a box, or build a whole new box, whatever is important for you in leadership and in life. And it does take a village and a moat to make sure you can navigate the uncertainty that life will give you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes.
Please join me.
Thank you.
Thanking Thasunda.
Thank you so much. Thank you.